Hi pre-AP students, this is the reteach for the James Madison through Andrew Jackson test that we took a while back. We are going to offer retest sessions only if you have watched this video beginning on Thursday morning, January 30th, and going through Monday morning. So we really only need to cover two big topics that you guys struggled with on our recent test. And the first one is the Monroe Doctrine. So you'll remember James Monroe, our fifth president, comes to be president during what we call the era of good feelings. And the reason that we're feeling so good is that we've just essentially won the War of 1812, or in our minds we had. And so the whole world is kind of looking at the United States as becoming more of a superpower. And this is, sort of the decline of England and some of those other European countries being the most powerful, because we continue to prove that our economy is growing and that our military can withstand war against Europe. And so President Monroe comes in, and with the help of his Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, they decide to go ahead and create something called the Monroe Doctrine to make sure that the entire Western Hemisphere, so we're talking all of North America and all of South America, is completely off limits for any future colonization. What that means is no European countries can come make any new colonies in North America or South America. The idea behind this is that James Monroe is really trying to help those South American countries who are in revolution mode themselves to become independent democracies. This is kind of that whole American idea that we need to protect democracy around the globe. And so essentially he puts this imaginary stop sign, like we see in the political cartoon, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and says, nobody can come over here. And of course, that's sort of a ridiculous thing to think about since he's not the president of the entire Western Hemisphere. But nonetheless, because we are in this era of good feelings at the beginning of his presidency, and the country is gaining respect from the world, everyone obeys. And so that is the end of colonization in the Western Hemisphere. On the test, what we saw you guys mixing this up with was an answer choice that talked about immigration. So let's be clear real quick. James Monroe is not stopping immigration. He is stopping colonization. Immigration is just coming to live in a different country. Colonization is a little bit more aggressive. It is your countries coming into this country to take over, to take advantage of, to destroy their culture. So those are two totally different things. Lastly, the other topic you guys struggled just a little bit with was from Andrew Jackson's presidency, and that is the Tariff of Abominations and the Nullification Crisis. You might remember this as just the Tariff of 1828. So you remember Andrew Jackson is, just like all the other presidents, continuing to try to strengthen America's economy, and beginning as soon as the War of 1812 is kind of wrapping up, the United States realizes we've got to increase domestic manufacturing. We cannot rely on importing goods from other countries, especially European countries. We need to be a little bit more self-sufficient. The problem is that the South still buys those imported goods and likes the imported goods, and that the South relies on that trading relationship with Europe because the South is sending the export of cotton and other cash crops. So Andrew Jackson, like other presidents before him, decides to put in place a protective tariff. And this is to encourage Americans to buy domestically manufactured goods because, of course, when we put a protective tariff on an import, typically the price of the imported good becomes more expensive than if you just buy it from a domestic factory. The South, of course, is very angry about this. The South is not running on factories. The South is still very agrarian. They don't benefit in any way in their eyes from these protective tariffs. In fact, they now have to pay more because the products are going to be more expensive whether they buy them from Europe or from America. And Europe is going to be so angry about these protective tariffs that they're not going to buy those cash crops anymore. So they're really angry. And they say that the North is the only group benefiting from a protective tariff. That's where all the factories are, that's where the manufacturing is done, and therefore they're getting the benefit of protective tariffs. Andrew Jackson's stand on this is that if one part of our country is helping the economy, then the entire country is being helped. The South, of course, disagrees. And with the help of Andrew Jackson's vice president, John C. Calhoun, the state of South Carolina decides that they would like to try to nullify this protective tariff. In other words, they just want to ignore it. Obviously, we can't have states ignoring federal laws, and John Marshall has already put in place the precedent that the federal law is supreme to state laws. So Andrew Jackson says, you have to follow my law. You have to obey this tariff. And if you don't, I will use military force. And I will put something in place called the Force Bill to make sure that you are not nullifying this tariff. And furthermore, that you are not seceding from the Union. Because, of course, South Carolina had said, if you won't let us nullify, then we're just going to quit. We're going to secede. And Andrew Jackson actually does see the bigger picture there and realizes that he needs to protect the Union. He needs to keep the country together. And so with the threat of the Force Bill, South Carolina does go ahead and obey reluctantly. The question on the test that you guys struggled with said something similar to what was in question in this whole event. And remember, this is that whole age-old argument. Can a state go above federal law? Can a state nullify a federal law and go against the federal government? And of course the answer is no, because the Constitution and the federal government are above state law, according to Amendment 10, which states federalism. The states do have some powers, but they cannot go against the federal government.